Hi, everybody. I'm David Rodriguez. Welcome to Leaning Left. I just watched the first debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Might be the only debate. We don't know for sure yet. And man, it's a little rough. I do want to send out my thoughts and prayers to Donald Trump and his family. I haven't heard any news about his condition yet, but I've never seen anyone take a beating that bad and live. So, everything hopefully will be okay. But wow, to borrow a phrase from Barack Obama, he got completely shellacked. It was beautiful. It was brutal, though. Really brutal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down and talk about some of the points that were made, refute them when they're ridiculous, like most of Trump's were. I'm not going to be able to hit on everything because I try to keep these videos kind of bite-sized. So forgive me if I miss something or if I don't go into as much detail as maybe you'd like. I'm going to do my best here. Just bear with me. My notes are right down here, so if you see me looking down a lot, that's why. But let's get going on this. So right off the bat, Kamala Harris says she's going to create an opportunity economy. She'll use that phrase several times during the debate, saying she's going to give a $6,000 tax credit or child tax credit to people who need it, which is fantastic because that has helped lift kids out of poverty, and that's going to be like the highest tax credit that we've gotten before. And she's also going to give a $50,000 tax deduction to people trying to start up new businesses. That's great. Help people, make new businesses. Pretty fantastic. Trump starts out talking about how other countries are going to pay for tariffs. It's not a sales tax on the American people. That's not how tariffs work. So when he puts a tariff on things from China, for instance, they will not pay a penny. That's not going to cost them a single penny. It will raise the cost of those items for us. And now, eventually, the theory is that if those items cost a lot, we won't buy them, and that will eventually hurt those countries. But the amount of things that come from China that we use right now, that's going to mean a massive increase in the cost of just about everything. Because even though it'd be great to make all that stuff in America, right now, we don't have the manufacturing available to do that. It's not possible. We can't turn it around that quickly. So yes, that is a big sales tax increase on all of us. Of course, it won't bother rich people at all because Donald Trump. He then goes on to say that the people coming over the border are from prisons and insane asylums. What is he talking about? Nobody knows. They're not letting a bunch of people out of insane asylums and having them come over here. It's ludicrous to say it. I don't even know, I don't even know how to argue that because it's such a crazy idea. That is not happening. He said he created the greatest economy ever that anyone's ever known, etc. His usual BS. No, he didn't. No, it was kind of a disaster. He added a third of our total national debt, and everything was kind of screwed up when he left office. That's why Harris goes on to say that her and Biden had to clean up Trump's mess, and they did. In addition to all the ways in which our economy is doing really well right now, the low unemployment, the wages going up, the inflation going way down under his watch, they had to deal with the fact that Donald Trump ignored the pandemic or told people to use hydrochloroquine or whatever, which does nothing. They're there's no proof that does anything to help. And that ruined everything because if he had gotten behind the idea of people using vaccines or masking up or doing the things that they needed to stomp out this virus, all those businesses wouldn't have had been closed down nearly as long. We could have gotten things up and running a lot faster, but he chose to do what he did because he couldn't stand having something bad happen under his watch. Even if it wasn't his fault, he could have come in and been the hero. He wasn't. And so a lot of things got ruined. But under the Biden administration, they've created way more jobs than we lost during the COVID pandemic. So I would understand if it equaled out. You couldn't really give them the credit for that, but they way exceeded the number of jobs that we lost during the pandemic. So there's that. And I bring all that up because Trump says that he did a great job with the pandemic and everyone congratulated him. No, he didn't. Our hospitals were overflowing with people. He let the anti-vax ideas run rampant. Okay. He gave all these ideas for these alternate cures, which by the way, would do nothing to help with COVID. It's honestly a lot of deaths on his hands. It really is. If he would have handled this well, a lot of people would be alive today that aren't. So no one thinks he did a great job. No one who's aware of what happened and doesn't listen to the news that hides it all, Fox. Now Trump goes back to talking about Kamala Harris's plans, and he says that they are 4 sentences. He doesn't explain them, although I think he did say one of them was run, spot, run. Donald Trump babbling. At least he didn't talk about Hannibal Lecter, so that's an improvement. And he talks about the tariff things again, saying it'll mean higher prices for China. No, it won't. That is not how tariffs work. That's not how tariffs work. That has never been how tariffs work. That will never be how tariffs work. He's making that up. And if he gets in office, you all will see that whatever you think about inflation now, it's going to seem fantastic compared to what happens if he does this tariff idea. Now, Kamala Harris points out that Trump sold us out by making chips and selling them to China so that they could keep their economy booming instead of helping us here in America. This is true. Trump gets back on the immigration thing. He will go back to this on literally every topic that they ask him, because this is like his only thing that he really thinks he has to run on. And he says, well, they think that 18 million people come over, but it's really much higher. I think it's 21 million people. And actually, it's much higher than that, I think. So he thinks based on, he's just saying he thinks. He's not basing this on anything. So he's coming up with numbers based on what he thinks, no data. I mean, I don't know what else I have to say about this. He's inflating numbers just like he does with his net worth, and somehow people will believe that. It's madness. Trump gets on the topic of abortion, saying again that Democrats want abortions in the 9th month and that they are I'm unaliving. I have to be careful because the YouTube thing, unaliving babies after they're born, and he's saying that everyone, all the experts, wanted the abortion thing to go to the states. Okay. Now, even ABC had to call him out on this. In no state at all, is it legal to unalive a baby after it's born. That does not happen. It's absurd to think that that would be possible anywhere. It really is. Like, this is plain and simple. Like, that would obviously be infanticide. That doesn't happen. They keep talking about it. It's not real. And this abortion in the 9th month thing, that doesn't happen either, at least not the way that he is saying. No one goes in 9 months pregnant, maybe a day or two from having the baby, say, hey, I want an abortion, and they just do it like that. That's not what it is. When they do abort a baby that late term, it is because the life of the mother is in danger and probably the baby is not viable. That's the only reason it happens. That is an emergency situation. It is not because someone on a whim decided they didn't want the baby anymore at the 9-month mark. It's a lie you'll hear Republicans tell over and over and over again, and it's very simple to find out that this is not true. They won't do it, or they'll go to like Breitbart or Fox or whatever, who will repeat these lies, which they are, and they will not look beyond that because no one else tells them what they want to hear. Harris goes back telling us that Trump wants to monitor our pregnancies. He wants the government to do it. Hopefully not him personally, I assume, because, that would take away from his golf game, I assume. But yeah, they want to be able to check and see where everyone is in their pregnancy exactly, so that if anyone should happen to get the thought of getting an abortion, they could put the person in jail or what have you. Him and Vance are the most anti-women's rights presidency I've seen, well, definitely in my lifetime. Probably if you go back far enough, you hit some more of them. But no modern presidents. It's absolute madness. It really is. On the same note, Trump says he's a leader in IVF. He didn't explain that. I'm not convinced he knows what IVF actually is. But he's more than happy to let states outlaw that. So that's not really a leader in IVF. That's turning your back while states do something that supposedly you're against. I don't believe he is. He started talking about how the student loan forgiveness was a disaster and they got all the kids' hopes up and then it didn't happen, except it has been happening. Like, the initial way he was going to do it got shot down by the Supreme Court, but he's found workarounds that have allowed him to forgive a lot of student loans. There are tons and tons of people who've had massive amounts of student loans forgiven and are able to actually contribute to our economy now. He hasn't gotten everybody, of course. If Trump's Supreme Court had let him, maybe everyone would be. But regardless, all the time, he's including more groups and finding more ways to get those student loans forgiven. It's not a disaster. They weren't like dangling something in front of these people who got ripped off by predatory student loans and then not giving it to them. Like, this is actually happening and helping thousands and thousands of people. Since Trump kept bringing up immigration, Harris points out that they had a bipartisan border bill. They had one. It was worked on by Republicans and Democrats, and it was honestly much more conservative than most Democrats like, for sure. It would have added a ton of Border Patrol agents to our border to help stem the tide of people coming across. And Trump called up people in Congress and told them to shut it down because he needed that to run on. She pointed that out correctly, accurately. He wanted to be able to point the finger at Biden and Harris and say that they are letting he calls them illegals, but immigrants come over the border, unchecked, when they tried to stop that, and he stopped them from doing so because he didn't want them to be able to solve the problem, which makes you kind of realize, to him, it's not about the problem. He doesn't care if that gets solved. He cares if he gets power, obviously. Now, Harris also talks about Trump's rallies. She actually invites people to go to Trump's rallies and to see people leaving early because they are bored. And this is true because he rambles for over an hour talking nonsense and saying the same garbage he's been saying for years. People get up and leave bored. Or, you see the audience behind him on some of these rallies and they just look listless, like they don't know what to do. They're yawning. I'm not even joking. Like, it sounds like I'm making stuff up, but seriously, you can watch some of these and see it happen. It's kind of sad. It's like they have to humor this guy because they're so determined to vote for him, but they can't really hide their extreme boredom at everything he's saying. And yeah, some of them do just get up and leave partway. Now, Trump tries to defend his rally size, like, oh, everyone wants to see me. They don't want to see her. No one goes to her rallies. Have you seen the video of her rallies? There's plenty of people there. And I'm not saying that he doesn't ever get his stuff filled. I mean, sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. I'm sure that's true of Harris too. But her rallies have been like high energy, tons of people there. Whereas the number of rallies that I've seen where there are a lot of empty seats for him seem to be growing steadily. But you knew that Harris talking about his crowds not enjoying him and not being that big was going to get under his skin, and it did immediately. Now, Trump tried again to go back to immigration, talking about this story about Haitian immigrants eating people's pets, which ABC actually fact-checked him on this, which is great because that story is not true. Again, like, the police got no reports of that happening. None. It's not a real thing. There was one woman who, you can see the video if you want, I probably wouldn't if I were you, but who like kills and eats a cat in her front yard. That woman was born in America. She is a U.S. citizen. She's not a Haitian immigrant. It's not happening. It's completely made up. It was based on some goofy post someone put on Facebook at some point. And Trump and the right-wing media has taken off with it as if it were real, because it's just another thing to try to make people afraid of immigrants, like everything else they say about immigrants. It's all fear-mongering. It's all fake. That's what it is. Now, after he talks about that, Harris, says, well, talk about extreme, because it was a crazy, crazy story to ever believe in. But she talks about how some of the people that worked for him, with him, now say he's a disaster. Like, he's terrible in foreign policy, et cetera, et cetera. Like, really, anything that they had anything to do with, they say that he's terrible at. He's terrible for the country. He has no respect for the Constitution, no respect for the military. And it's not a small number of people. Like, she named names, but there's more than what even she said. And that should tell you a lot. And hopefully it told the American people a lot who maybe didn't know that. So not surprisingly, Trump goes back to talking about how Democrats let criminals and terrorists in and all this stuff. Now, again, I'd like to point out that statistically, the immigrants coming into our country commit crime at a lower rate than people born in this country. So if anything, when they flood into an area, they're bringing the crime rate down. Those are just statistical facts. Then Kamala does the brilliant thing and points out the hypocrisy of him talking about how all this crime is terrible when he has, like, he's been found guilty of 34 felonies and has more indictments ahead of him. She lists them all, how he's like an educated sexual assaulter, etc. And well, that's not true, and I'm gonna beat those, and then I'll beat them on appeal and whatever. Anyway, the point is that as much as he wants to say that this is all like created by the Democrats, which is what he said, that they're doing political persecution, it takes grand juries to decide that there's enough evidence to go forward with the trial, which they did, and then it takes juries to find out or to decide whether or not he's guilty or innocent, which, at least in one of these cases, they did. And those juries and grand juries are picked not just by the prosecution, but by the defense, his lawyers as well. So bullshit much. Now, they asked Harris about her change on position on fracking and some other things too, but I'm going to focus on the fracking thing. And she said that, she doesn't want to ban fracking, but she does want to make us less reliant on it by using other means of energy creation. But also points out that under Biden, we have produced more oil than any other president in history. So as much as Donald wants to go around saying drill, baby, drill, it's Biden and Harris that actually did it. Whereas he didn't manage to get that done, like almost everything else he promises. Now, the incident in Charlottesville with the guys with tiki torches came up, and Donald Trump says that's been completely debunked. Just ask Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham and all these other Fox News people. By the way, worth noting again that the guy who owned Fox News said that they are not meant to be a real news organization and that they're just for entertainment. And in another lawsuit, they looked at all the big hosts their text message to each other, talking about how they know they are lying to the public. So I wouldn't really trust their debunking, especially when we all saw this on TV with our own eyes. Like we saw them with our own eyes. Now, if you just watch Fox, maybe you didn't, but the rest of us did. And I'm sure you could still find footage of it out there, the racist crap they were chanting. And Trump's trying to tell us that wasn't real. Even though, by the way, this not real group, he said at the time there were fine people on both sides. So the moderators ask Trump about January 6th, and he tries to say, well, I said to be patriotic and peaceful, and it's terrible because Ashley Babbitt got killed over there and nobody on the other side got killed. Okay. She was breaking into a building. She went through a window, by the way, where police were getting attacked and hurt, attacked with flags, and people were rampaging through the halls, smearing feces on the walls. And yeah, she got killed. And the thing is, when you act like a domestic terrorist, sometimes that happens to you. It's too bad she threw away her life. She shouldn't have. But she did. And that was her doing. But to claim that no one died on the other side isn't true, because while I don't know that anyone died that day, it caused a lot of problems for the officers. Some officers did die. Some officers killed themselves because they couldn't handle what had happened to them, because it was so horrific. So, he can talk about backing the blue all he wants, but he absolutely had the backs of the people assaulting them that day. And we all know it because we all saw it. He also tried to say, I offered Nancy Pelosi and the mayor, 10,000 National Guard, but they said no. Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of DC are not in charge of the National Guard. First off, I don't think that this offer even took place, but regardless, he could see what was going down. He was one of the only people, maybe the only person with the ability to send the National Guard there to stop this, which is what any sane president who actually cared about the rule of law would have done, because he could see that this is bad news, this is going to harm our democracy, and people are going to get hurt. That's what any sane president who is actually a patriot would have done, and he didn't. He sat there watching it for a few hours. Now, they asked him about him admitting that he had lost, because just recently he said he admitted in an interview that he lost by a whisker, and he's like, "Oh, that was just sarcastic." Which, if you have heard it, there is no sarcasm in his voice whatsoever. He sounds kind of sorrowful when he says it. He doesn't sound sarcastic in the least. But the fact of the matter is, he knows he lost, and he knows he sent people to commit violent acts in his name on the basis that he didn't when he knew that he did. And Ashley Babbitt got killed, others got hurt, and a ton of them got arrested for what now he admits is a lie. Harris points out that our other world leaders, our allies, laugh at Trump. They think he's ridiculous because he doesn't know what he's doing. Because he really doesn't know what he's doing. He has no clue. They don't want him there because they have no respect for the man. Because he's not smart enough for the job. He's not qualified for the job. He doesn't know what he's doing when he deals with them. And Trump tries to come back and basically go on this tirade about how Viktor Orban respects him. Viktor Orban is a dictator. He's a dictator. So, I don't think respect is the right word. Same with how Putin doesn't actually respect him. Xi Jinping doesn't actually respect him. They just know that they can get him to do what they want. That's what they think of Trump. Now, Trump tries to claim that China and North Korea and Russia were all actually afraid of him. No, he was their tool. He still is their tool. And if he gets into office again, he will be their tool again, and he'll be just more powerful than he was before. A better tool, but still just a tool for them. Now, on the topic of Gaza, Harris pushes for a two-state solution. She says we need to stop the fighting, we need to work out a deal to get the hostages back, and work towards a two-state solution. Because both the Palestinians and the people of Israel deserve peace, they deserve autonomy, they deserve to have their democracy, which I think most people would agree. Trump just goes on to claim that that war and the war in Ukraine wouldn't have happened if he was in office. It wouldn't have, because he doesn't say why or how, but it just wouldn't have. I guess because they respect him so much. Here's what would have happened, and Kamala Harris does get to this later. He would have just let the attackers do whatever they want. He would let Putin take everything and not stop him and probably even help him. And, when Harris is talking about how Israel has the right to defend themselves, but it's important how they do it, I'm pretty sure that Trump would just let Israel do whatever they wanted, no matter how extreme it might be. Because again, his son it's talked about making Gaza like beachfront property. So there's money to be made. So screw people's lives, right? Right. Now, Trump tries to point out that in a recent interview, Putin said that he wanted Harris to win, which is laughable. He did say that. He did. That's true. But Trump lets him do whatever he wants. Literally whatever he wants. Whereas Harris and Biden has stood up to him and imposed sanctions on him and tried to make him stop doing the things that he's been doing that are bad and helped out the people that are fighting for their very lives against him. So explain to me how that was a true statement that Putin wants her to win. Does that make any sense to anybody? No. It was clearly a BS thing because Putin thinks that's funny or whatever. I don't know. But no one with the shred of intelligence is buying that. Now, the moderators bring up Trump saying that Harris turned black. I'm sure you've seen that clip before. And Trump goes on for a minute saying, I don't care what she is. She can be whatever she wants. It's okay with me. I don't care if she's South Asian or she's black. If she said to her South Asian, but now she says she's black, blah, 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 and it's okay with me. And that was his statement, basically. Now, I don't want to go into the whole history again, but Harris went to a historically black university. She was part of a black sorority. She was in the Black Congressional Caucus. She's never said ever that she was not black. She is both South Asian and black. So sometimes she'll say one and sometimes she'll say the other because it depends on what's relevant in the current conversation that she's having. She doesn't need to point out her whole lineage if it's not relevant. Simple. Now, Harris goes back to talking about how Donald Trump has always used racism in everything he's done, from when he was investigated for not running to black people in the 1970s to when he put out a full-page ad in the New York Times saying that he still wanted the Central Park Five put to death, even though they were found innocent. He's like, well, they pleaded guilty. Yeah. You know why? Because the police braided them into it. They felt like they had to. And then when they got lawyers on their side, they realized that they should not have done that. It's not the first time it's happened. The point is, after it's said and done, they were found innocent. And he still put out an ad calling for their deaths. And that's just the old stuff. And he tries to point out, you have to go all the way far back to find anything racist. No, we don't. We could go to probably any speech that you've done in this entire time where you've been in politics where you mention another race. Like that, we could do that, but she didn't have all day. She only has a couple minutes to say anything in this debate. So no time to go over it all, Donald. We'll just go over like the big things that are like from, way back. So we know that you've always been this way. And then the rest of us can just watch your speeches and see it happen in real time, anytime. Now, Trump tries to say Obamacare is lousy, even though it's extremely popular. Harris points out that he tried to get rid of it 60 times. And every time there was such an uproar about it that they ended up not doing so. So it's extremely, extremely, extremely popular. He keeps saying it's lousy. He's like, well, if we can come up with something better, we will. And they ask him what his plan is. He's like, well, I'm not the president. I don't have a plan yet. I just have concepts of a plan. You're supposed to have something to run on, dude. You're supposed to have some kind of an idea. You might be able to fine tune it later, but you should have something to tell people now, or you don't have anything. Just like when you were first president and you said that you had something better than Obamacare and you were going to implement it within the first week, and it never, ever, ever, ever happened, and you haven't ever told us what that plan was because it wasn't real. Yeah, just like that. Now, a few times during the debate, Trump had said how Harris and Walz wanted to take away everyone's guns. And Harris points out that both she and Walz are gun owners. I mean, Walz is a hunter, by the way. I'm pretty sure he's not doing it with his bare hands. He's a hunter. No one's coming to take away your guns. They're going for common sense gun control laws that, by the way, the vast, vast majority of the people in the U.S. want. That's it. No one's taking anything away. Of course, he kept saying it anyway, but, lies. That's what he does. There's a point towards the end where Trump goes on this like weird tirade about how Biden's gotten money from all these other countries, and why isn't anyone investigating it? I mean, first off, it's the first that I've ever heard of it. They've tried to investigate Biden for all kinds of things, but every time there's nothing there. So I don't know if any of these were involved in that. Maybe I missed it. I'm not sure, but there's nothing. There's nothing to investigate the man or nothing to get him in trouble for. So, just pulling the stuff out of his butt. I would like to know why Jared Kushner got $2 billion from Saudi Arabia. Wouldn't you? I'm curious about that, because we know for a fact that happened. Like, that's not in question. That's not made up. We know that happened. Why is that, Donald? I'd like to know. But, he's going to deflect, and, every accusation is an admission from him. So there you have it. In the end of his closing statement, he says something that a lot of people on the right are saying. It's like, oh, you have say you're going to do all these things. Well, why haven't you done it in the last 3.5 years? Oh boy, this is simple. She's not the president. She's not. She's the vice president. Now, she has some sway, I assume. I don't know exactly how it goes between her and Joe Biden, but she can suggest anything she wants. But if Joe Biden doesn't want to go for it, that's that. She can't do that on her own. That's not within her power. So that's probably why she hasn't done that. A lot of things they have tried, Biden and her together, have gotten shot down by Republicans, even though it would have helped people, and there's really no argument about that, but they still just wanted them to not have a win, so screw Americans. Anyway, that's why, by the way, when anyone says that, it's because she's not president yet. He finished off by going on some big tirade about all these things that she did. I don't even remember. It was all just a bunch, one BS thing after another. Literally none of it was based in any facts. I don't even want to repeat it. Now, you notice I haven't said nearly as much about what Harris said, because there wasn't anything to really call her out on for the most part. There were a few questions I felt like maybe she didn't answer that directly. I'll admit that. That's what it is. But she would say all this way more eloquently than I could. Whereas, someone who's just learning to speak could say everything Trump said more eloquently than he can. So I figure I could go ahead and tell you about his stuff and just kind of touch on Harris's stuff. The point is, through this entire debate, he seemed angry. He seemed like he was defensive, on the back foot. He was just babbling out accusations, again, based on nothing. Now, I have no doubt that MAGA people will still see this as a win somehow. But he was already going to get those people's votes. The independents, the Republicans who feel disenfranchised by their own party, Democrats, he definitely didn't win any of them over at all. He looked pathetic. He looked weak. He looked scared. That's how he looked. And you don't have to believe me. If you didn't see it, go watch it yourself. Tell me what you think. But I've never seen anyone beaten this bad in a debate. Ever. Anywhere. It was, I literally almost felt bad for the man. I really did. And I have almost no sympathy for him whatsoever. I almost felt bad for him, but then I remembered kids in cages and hundreds of thousands of people dying because of his botched COVID response. And then I was like, screw him. He deserves it. So anyway, let me know what you think. Let me know what you thought was a highlight in this thing. I wish I could go in depth more, but again, this is already a way longer video than I usually put out. So thank you if you stuck with it this long. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on any of it. I'd love to hear them. If you thought there's anything especially poignant that maybe I missed, or just that you felt was important to you. I would love to know that kind of thing. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please hit like and subscribe and click the little bell icon so you can know about the next time I put out a video. And in the meantime, stay woke, stay vigilant, keep fighting, and remember, if you keep leaning left, you'll always be right.